Pleasure is the sweetest illusion. It arrives dressed as freedom, yet it binds deeper than chains of iron. Pain can be endured, resisted, even conquered. But pleasure? It seeps quietly into the soul, convincing you that surrender is choice. If pleasure is truly liberation, why has it enslaved entire societies across history? Why do rulers, corporations, and empires always turn to pleasure, not force, as their sharpest weapon of control? From Rome's circuses to today's endless screens, pleasure has been dangled before the masses like bait, distracting them from their own decay. The unsettling truth is that what feels like reward is often the perfect trap. And while the crowd smiles, it never notices the leash tightening around its neck. This is not comfort. This is design. The story of humanity is not written in blood alone, but in pleasure turned into chains. Pleasure was once a tool of survival. In ancient times, the brain rewarded the hunter with satisfaction after a successful kill, the tribe with joy after safety was secured, the parent with warmth after protecting a child. Pleasure was designed to guide us toward life-preserving actions. But in the modern world, that same mechanism has been hijacked. What once ensured survival now ensures submission. Endless food, constant entertainment, glowing screens, all flood the brain with rewards it has not earned. The result is not strength but exhaustion, not freedom but dependency. Discomfort builds resilience. The soldier who endures pain grows harder. The thinker who tolerates silence grows sharper. Yet pleasure erodes willpower in slow, invisible doses. Each indulgence whispers, rest, stop, don't fight, don't climb. Over time, the mind forgets struggle, and the body forgets discipline. People believe pleasure makes life better, but in truth it makes them weaker. The danger is not obvious. A drug addict knows the needle destroys him. A drunkard sees the bottle. But the masses see no harm in sugar, in endless scrolling, in empty laughter that never ends. They call it fun, relaxation, escape. Yet the more they consume, the less they command themselves. They are not choosing. They are being chosen by systems that design the very pleasures they crave. Corporations feed on this. Politicians encourage it. Rulers of every age have known. A comfortable crowd is a controllable crowd. When pleasure is abundant, rebellion dies. When distraction is constant, thought becomes rare. The chains are invisible, and so the prisoner believes he is free. What is most terrifying is not that pleasure weakens the body, it weakens the will. A man who avoids struggle forgets his own power. A society that worships comfort forgets how to stand against tyranny. Strength comes from fire, but pleasure keeps men cold. The world tells you it is harmless, even good. But the truth is darker. What feels like sweetness is corrosion. What feels like reward is decay. Pleasure is not the enemy itself, it is the enemy's weapon. From the time you are young, you are told the same story. Happiness is comfort, joy is consumption, and freedom is the ability to indulge whenever you please. Advertisements whisper it from every glowing screen. Politicians promise it in every campaign speech. Social media parades endless faces smiling with new clothes, new gadgets, new vacations. The message is constant and relentless. If you are free, you should be enjoying yourself without limits. This is the cultural myth of our age, the beautiful lie that chains more minds than any tyrant ever could. But beneath its sweetness lies poison. The more people chase comfort, the less capable they become of living without it. Pleasure turns from a choice into a dependency. The myth says, the freer you are, the more you should consume. Yet in truth, the more you consume, the less free you become. A man addicted to comfort cannot resist those who provide it. History has seen this before. In ancient Rome, the emperors fed the masses bread and circuses, cheap food and endless games. Citizens laughed, cheered, and felt alive. But while they celebrated in the arenas, the empire rotted from within. The people thought they were free because they were entertained, yet they were blind to the chains tightening around them. Their so-called freedom was merely distraction. Their indulgence was the mask that covered their submission. Modern society repeats this design with greater sophistication. Instead of gladiators and festivals, we have streaming platforms, fast food chains, and digital entertainment running 24 hours a day. Instead of free bread, we are given cheap dopamine, likes, comments, shares. The lie is the same, only dressed in modern clothing. You are free because you are entertained. But what is entertainment if not sedation? What is pleasure if not the numbing of will? The lie is dangerous because it feels true. A person scrolling through endless content feels a kind of freedom. Nobody is stopping them. A shopper filling their cart feels empowered. Choices seem endless. Yet in reality, they are trapped in cages built by their own cravings. The supposed freedom to indulge is really the inability to live without indulging. That is not freedom, it is bondage. The brutal truth is this: real freedom is not found in indulgence but in resistance. A man who can deny himself has more control than the one who always says yes. A society that can endure discomfort is harder to rule than one that constantly demands new pleasures. The strong are not those who consume without limit, but those who master themselves against temptation. The myth of pleasure as freedom survives because it is beautiful. It promises ease instead of struggle, smiles instead of scars. But beauty can deceive, and comfort can enslave. Freedom has never been the right to consume, it has always been the power to resist. History does not hide the truth, it repeats it. Every empire that sought to pacify its people learned quickly that swords and prisons were crude tools. Fear alone could not sustain control. But pleasure could silence entire nations without a single drop of blood. Rome was the first master of this strategy. While corruption spread in the Senate and emperors grew fat with power, the masses were fed bread and circuses. Cheap food filled their stomachs, and endless gladiatorial games thrilled their eyes. The people cheered, laughed, and celebrated while their freedom quietly dissolved. They did not resist because they were entertained. Rome was not unique. Throughout history, rulers discovered the same principle. Indulgence distracts better than violence. Monarchs sponsored festivals, parades, and feasts, not out of generosity but calculation. A distracted people rarely rebel. Pleasure was the balm that dulled the pain of tyranny. Bread, wine, and spectacle were not rewards, they were weapons. The parallels today are impossible to ignore. Instead of circuses, we have reality television, celebrity scandals, and endless social media drama. Instead of bread handed out at arenas, we have cheap fast food on every corner, engineered to trigger dopamine with each bite. Fashion cycles turn faster than seasons, pushing people to chase novelty rather than notice decay. The same principle remains. Keep the people entertained, keep them consuming, and they will not question who benefits from their silence. Consider the modern smartphone. It is both the circus and the bread combined. Games, videos, gossip, and validation pour from it in endless supply. Hours slip away not because people are forced to comply, but because they willingly surrender. The device does not chain them, it seduces them. And in that seduction, power finds its strongest hold. The tragedy of history is not that empires fall to invaders. Rome did not die in one decisive battle. Its walls were not destroyed overnight. It decayed from within, its people softened by comfort, its leaders corrupt while the citizens looked away. Pleasure-soaked apathy hollowed the empire long before enemies struck its gates. And so it is today. Nations collapse not when enemies attack but when their people no longer care to resist, no longer hunger for discipline, no longer value truth over distraction. Pleasure promises joy but delivers blindness. The masses laugh while corruption deepens. They cheer while their freedoms shrink. They scroll, they eat, they consume, and believe themselves free. Yet every empire that chose to pacify through pleasure discovered the same fate. Apathy is not stability, it is decay. And when the people no longer see beyond their own indulgence, collapse is inevitable. The lesson of history is brutal and clear. Empires do not fall in war, they die laughing. The human brain was not built for the world we live in today. It was designed for scarcity, for the hunt, the harvest, the rare sweetness of fruit, the fleeting warmth of fire. Pleasure was meant to be occasional, a signal that said, This action keeps you alive, do it again. At the heart of this mechanism is dopamine, the brain's chemical of reward. When we achieve something, dopamine spikes, and the brain learns to seek it again. In nature, this drove survival. In modern life, it drives addiction. Here lies the trap. Dopamine does not guarantee happiness. It guarantees pursuit. The system is simple but merciless. Each spike of pleasure fades quickly, forcing the mind to crave another. The more you chase it, the less it satisfies. What once felt good becomes empty. The bite of sugar that once thrilled now requires 2. The hour of scrolling becomes 5. The brain craves more while delivering less. This cycle is called the reward loop, and it is the most efficient chain humanity has ever known. Unlike iron shackles, it does not need guards. Unlike prisons, it does not need walls. People willingly bind themselves to it. They press the button again and again, scrolling, buying, eating, consuming, not because they are forced, but because their own biology betrays them. Leaders, corporations, and systems have learned to weaponize this wiring. They engineer products and environments that trigger dopamine over and over. Junk food is designed not for nourishment but for bliss points. Just the right mix of salt, sugar, and fat to spike craving. Social media apps are built with infinite scrolls, likes, and unpredictable rewards, mimicking slot machines in your pocket. Politicians craft slogans and promises that offer emotional highs, knowing the crash will come, but by then, the vote is already cast. The masses believe they are choosing. In truth, they are being chosen by algorithms, by marketing strategies, by industries that study the brain not to heal it but to enslave it. Addiction is not an accident. It is a business model. Every craving is profit. Every click is control. The dark truth is this: people are not ruled by force but by desire. The armies of history chained bodies, but the empires of today chain minds. A man who is addicted needs no master. His cravings lead him by the leash. A society hooked on endless stimulation will not resist its rulers, because it cannot even resist itself. Addiction disguises itself as freedom. I eat because I want to, I scroll because I choose to. But the truth is darker. The brain has been rewired, the will eroded. What feels like choice is compulsion. And when compulsion rules the masses, no whip or sword is necessary. They are already conquered. Tyranny today does not march in boots or brandish swords. It smiles. It entertains. It sells. The most effective rulers in history have understood that pleasure pacifies better than punishment. Governments and elites learned long ago that citizens who are distracted will not rebel, and citizens who are comfortable will not demand change. The whip once kept people in line. Now it is the glowing screen, the shopping mall, the endless stream of cheap delights. The tactic is simple: trade freedom for convenience. Promise safety, comfort, and ease, and people willingly surrender their independence. Bread and circuses were Rome's formula. Today it is fast food and streaming platforms. Instead of gladiators spilling blood, influencers spill gossip. Instead of free bread, we are given cheap calories and instant deliveries. The people are distracted not by force but by design. Consumerism is the perfect leash. People work longer hours not for survival, but to buy the next distraction dangled before them. They accept rising surveillance, shrinking freedoms, and corrupt leadership so long as their pleasures remain uninterrupted. A protester risks his life for freedom, but a consumer only risks missing the newest trend. Comfort becomes the cage, and pleasure becomes the lock. This is why political apathy thrives in pleasure-rich societies. Citizens who are busy chasing entertainment rarely notice laws passed in the shadows. They are too tired, too distracted, too satisfied with crumbs of comfort to care about the banquet stolen from them. A population addicted to dopamine is easy to rule, because it no longer asks questions, it only asks for more. The elites know this. Corporations engineer addiction, governments allow it, and both profit from a population too sedated to resist. Distraction is not a side effect, it is the strategy. For every failing school, there is a new video game. For every corrupt policy, a celebrity scandal dominates the news. For every crisis, There is a new pleasure ready to soothe the masses back into silence. The most dangerous tyranny is the one that feels like freedom. People laugh, consume, and indulge, believing they are choosing their own lives. They do not see the invisible threads guiding their desires. The rulers do not need to build prisons. The citizens build them themselves out of screens, shopping carts, and indulgence. The brutal truth is this: chains of silk are still chains. Just because they do not cut the skin does not mean they do not strangle the will. Tyranny today does not punish the body, it seduces the mind. And while the masses smile, distracted by pleasures they believe are theirs, power grows unchecked in the shadows. Human beings are not wired to seek truth. They are wired to seek comfort. Truth is heavy. It demands responsibility, discipline, and courage. Lies, on the other hand, are soft cushions. They let people escape the weight of reality and slip into illusions where nothing must be faced. This is why pleasure becomes the perfect substitute for truth. It offers escape from discomfort without demanding growth. Consider the brutal contrast. A man can sit in silence, confront his fears, and reshape his life. Or he can scroll endlessly through images that give him the illusion of connection. Social media offers likes instead of love, validation instead of meaning. It removes the responsibility of real intimacy while providing the feeling of being seen. The lie feels better than the truth, so the lie is chosen. The same pattern plays out across every part of life. Entertainment is chosen over education. Junk food is chosen over health. Comfortable distractions are chosen over uncomfortable growth. People say they want honesty, but when honesty cuts too deep, they run back to illusions. A harsh truth is rejected. A sweet lie is consumed like honey. Pleasure becomes not just a desire but a refuge from responsibility. Leaders and corporations understand this weakness. They do not sell truth. They sell escape. Politicians offer false promises that sound soothing but hide bitter consequences. Media companies flood people with stories that entertain but never challenge. Corporations engineer pleasures so effortless that discipline is no longer required. In every case, the lie triumphs because it feels easier than truth. Yet this escape is poison disguised as relief. Pleasure removes discomfort in the moment but deepens it in the long run. The man who scrolls feels connected, but he is lonelier than ever. The citizen who believes empty promises feels secure, but his freedoms shrink. The eater who indulges feels satisfied, but his body decays. Each escape leaves the core problem unresolved, and the cost of truth grows heavier. The seduction lies in simplicity. Truth requires action, lies allow passivity. To face truth is to stand up and carry the burden. To embrace pleasure is to sit down and be carried away. And so, people choose the path of least resistance, unaware that this path is built to enslave. The insight is clear. Pleasure is not preferred because it is better. It is preferred because it removes responsibility. It allows people to feel free while quietly binding them tighter. A society that chooses lies over truth does not collapse suddenly. It rots slowly, smiling as it fades. The seduction of escape is the greatest illusion of all, because it convinces people they are choosing joy when in fact they are choosing chains. History is littered with ruins, and if you look closely, you'll notice a pattern. Civilizations rarely fall because of enemies outside their walls. They fall because of decay within. And at the heart of that decay lies the worship of pleasure. Discipline builds empires. Indulgence destroys them. Take Rome. Its rise was forged in steel and hardship. Soldiers marching for miles on little food. Citizens hardened by duty. Leaders still wary of weakness. But when Rome reached its peak, discipline gave way to indulgence. Bread and circuses replaced sacrifice. Citizens demanded entertainment more than virtue, excess more than restraint. Gladiators bled in arenas while corruption spread through the Senate. By the time enemies stormed the gates, Rome had already collapsed in spirit. The pattern repeated centuries later. In the Weimar Republic of Germany, endless parties, decadence, and moral collapse hollowed out a society reeling from defeat. Pleasure became the drug of escape, drowning discipline. Into that vacuum stepped darker forces, feeding on weakness created by indulgence. The cycle of collapse began again. The late stages of every empire follow this same rhythm. Strength hardens people, success softens them, and indulgence finishes the decay. A civilization that worships comfort loses the ability to defend itself. Its citizens stop asking what they can build and start asking what they can consume. Leaders become entertainers, and policies become distractions. Values are traded for appetites, and appetites are never satisfied. Modern society mirrors this decline in haunting ways. Consumer culture thrives on indulgence. Buy more, eat more, watch more, consume without end. Leaders are not chosen for wisdom but for charisma, their ability to sell comfort rather than demand discipline. Shallow values dominate the culture, image over substance, feelings over truth. Like Rome before it, the modern empire is rotting, not from war but from within. Discipline is the foundation of both individuals and nations. A man who controls himself grows stronger with each trial. A nation that cultivates discipline builds resilience that can withstand crisis. But when pleasure becomes the guiding principle, individuals weaken and societies collapse. What builds the man is what builds the empire, discipline. What destroys the man is what destroys the empire, indulgence. The dark insight is this: civilizations don't fall to enemies, they rot from within. History's greatest empires were not toppled because outsiders were stronger, but because insiders had grown too soft to resist. A society consumed by pleasure has already surrendered, even if its armies still stand. Its walls may still rise high, but inside, its will has crumbled. Pleasure feels like life, but it is death in slow motion. When civilizations choose indulgence over discipline, they are not celebrating, they are digging their own graves. And like Rome, like Weimar, like every fallen empire before, the end comes not with a roar of defiance but with a cheer from the crowd, blind to the collapse already beneath their feet. The chains of pleasure are everywhere, but they are not unbreakable. History shows that civilizations collapse when indulgence rules, but individuals can still rise by rejecting what the masses embrace. The way forward is not to wait for society to change, it will not. The way forward is to harden yourself, to master restraint, and to build a discipline so sharp that no distraction can pierce it. At work, this means becoming untouchable to distraction. While others drown in notifications, gossip, and shallow busyness, you can choose focus. Silence your phone, clear your desk, and treat every hour as a weapon. The man who resists distraction outpaces the one who indulges it. In a culture addicted to dopamine, the rare worker who can sustain deep focus becomes invaluable. Restraint is not weakness here, it is power. In relationships, the same principle applies. Shallow dopamine cycles dominate modern connection, swiping like temporary validation that feeds the craving but starves the soul. To resist this, seek depth over novelty. Speak less but with more meaning. Give without expectation. Withhold kindness until it carries weight. The person who avoids the traps of shallow connection builds bonds that endure, while the pleasure chaser is left empty. In daily life, discipline must become your fortress. Fasting is not about food, it is about commanding appetite. Training is not about the body, it is about teaching the mind to endure discomfort. Cold showers, silence, long walks without devices. These are not punishments but reminders that you control yourself, not your cravings. Each small act of chosen discomfort makes you stronger while others grow weaker in their pursuit of comfort. The critical truth is this: you cannot change the masses. They will continue to bow before pleasure, chasing distractions until collapse comes. You cannot wake them and you cannot save them. But you can free yourself. You can build a mind and body that do not yield to the traps laid out before you. And in doing so, you rise above the herd, not by standing against them, but by stepping outside their chains. Freedom is not found in indulgence. It is found in mastery. It is forged in the silence where cravings scream but you do not answer. It is carved in the moment when you say no, when you endure, when you choose the harder path. The masses will laugh, They will call you extreme, but in truth, they fear the one who cannot be seduced. Resisting pleasure's chains does not make you less human. It makes you untouchable. And while the world rots in its addictions, you will stand sharper, harder, freer. You cannot save the empire, but you can save the sovereign kingdom within yourself. That is the only kingdom worth ruling. Pleasure has always disguised itself as liberation. It whispers that you are free when you indulge, that you are choosing joy, that life is meant for ease and sweetness. But history, psychology, and philosophy all show the same truth. Pleasure is the most elegant chain ever forged. Empires do not need to enslave with iron when they can enslave with comfort. People cheer while their freedom erodes, never realizing they have traded their strength for entertainment, their focus for distraction, their future for indulgence. The paradox is chilling. What feels most like freedom is often the deepest form of captivity. The masses believe they are free because they can consume endlessly, scroll endlessly, laugh endlessly. But this freedom is scripted. Every craving is engineered, every distraction designed, every indulgence calculated. They are not choosing pleasure. Pleasure is choosing them. The metaphor is brutal but true. The sweetest honey hides the deadliest poison. Pleasure intoxicates, blinds, and weakens until resistance no longer exists. By the time its victims notice, the damage is done. Civilizations crumble, leaders decay, and individuals rot under the weight of indulgence. No chains, no prisons, just self-inflicted weakness. And yet, there is one path left, the path of mastery. The only real freedom is not found in chasing pleasure, but in commanding it. To enjoy without addiction, to consume without being consumed, to use pleasure as a tool without letting it become a master. This is the discipline of the few. This is the power that separates the rulers of themselves from the ruled masses. The truth is harsh. You cannot control how the world worships pleasure. You cannot halt the collapse of a distracted, addicted civilization. But you can build an empire within yourself. You can become the rare individual who does not bow to every craving, who does not collapse at every comfort. While others fall to the seduction of escape, you stand unshaken, because you know that freedom does not lie in indulgence, it lies in resistance. And this resistance is terrifying to the systems that profit from weakness. A man who cannot be seduced cannot be bought. A woman who cannot be distracted cannot be controlled. A mind that does not yield to cravings becomes sovereign, untouchable, feared. The world bows to pleasure, but the few who master it will never be ruled again.